Hey there, Wolfpack fans. It's me again, Kenton bringing you another episode of Locked On Wolfpack. And folks, we've got a familiar face that could be making a huge splash in Raleigh. That's right, a big man that could be filling an even bigger void for this men's basketball team. And we're going to talk about how Coach Dorn and his staff have been absolutely crushing it in terms of player development, particularly in the trenches. And the numbers bear that out. So stick with me. Today, we're going to touch on all that and more.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Now, folks, I don't want to get your hopes too up here. I don't want to get you too excited about something that just could happen that is a long shot or whatever the case may be. But Kenneth Lofton Jr. has been mentioned in connection with this program a few times. And let me tell you why that's absolutely big time. If you follow this program closely, you know exactly why that is a big time deal. If we want to go back to what he did against NC State this year, we're looking at a gentleman who put up 36 points, 17 rebounds. I want to say 4 assists. Yep, 4 assists on 14 of 19 shooting, 8 of 11 from the free throw stripe against us. Now, I know what you're thinking. Our bigs this year could not stop a soul, and that was right after Manny got hurt. It was early in the season. So, you want to take it with a grain of salt. Not so fast, my friend. At the end of the day, that game might have been an aberration in terms of he absolutely went bananas in that game in particular. But, and it may have been his highest points and rebound totals of the season. But the rest of the season, he was no slouch. The man averaged a double-double at 16 and a half points a game and 10 and a half rebounds, which were best for, I want to say, top 10 in the nation. So with that being said, you combine that with a 54% field goal percentage, and you could see where this man would be absolutely amazing for this team. And so the question that some people may pose, or the thought that some people may have, is he is a guy who thrives when he has his back to the basket, when he has the opportunity to what is the word I'm looking for? When he has the opportunity for the offense to run through him, and with Coach Keith's upbeat style, that may not mesh well with who Kenneth Lofton is. Well, let me just dispel that for 2 reasons here. Number one of the biggest problems under Keats has been our rebounding. We haven't been good at rebounding. That's just the reality. It's been a grind to do so, and there's not much that you can say as far as an extra 11 rebounds a game could not help. Or even if you're comparing him against our bigs from last year, an extra 7 or 8 rebounds a game could not help. First off. Second, the idea that another score would hurt us is a take, I guess. I mean, it's an interesting one that I don't agree with, but it's a take nonetheless. With the loss of Jericho Helms, what we look at going forward is at least 1/3 of our big three is gone. If you also factor in Darian C. Brown and say, hey, he's probably out the door as well, okay, fine. 2/3 of our big three is gone. And the most important part, a lot of people said that the biggest problem with Keats in-game coaching-wise, no adjustments. We just had the worst season in program history in terms of volume of losses. I would hope some things change. I would hope so. I would hope that Coach Keats is okay saying, we have an opportunity at a special player. We need to do what we need to do to go and get him. And I know that there are the biggest detractors that I've heard outside of the fit in who he is and with this system are critiques of him being on the shorter side for a big who's, he's about 6'7". Some people say 6'6.5". You add on the 7 when he puts shoes on. And some folks say that, with a guy of his size, is about 270, 280 pounds, it's going to be hard for him to get up and down the court in the system. And the idea that the statistics and the success that he had in the Conference USA, I believe, is replicable in the ACC is a little tough for some people to believe. But here's the thing. Even if you were to say, hey, the game against State was the aberration and everything else that he put up for the rest of the season is more so of what's representative of who he is or whatever the case may be, against LSU, he went 13 points, 7 rebounds. That is immensely more than any big has given NC State in quite some time. You all tell me when the last time we had a big average 13 and 7. And if you got the information, please let me know. Against Alabama, 12 and 9. If you have the information on who from NC State, what bigs we have that have done that plus, please let me know. Because it's not available in the recesses of my mind right away. So to me, the success not being replicable, I mean, we've seen what he's done against Power 5 competition. And we respect the fact that NC State did not have a lot of it was a bad position to be in with Manny Bates going down and Ebenezer having to step up and be a starter, and I get that, okay? But going forward from there, the height thing. I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, the game doesn't say who's the tallest. That's who's gonna win. That's not what this game is. It's not a measuring contest where you get a bunch of guys lined up against the wall, you put the measuring tape to their head, and you say, all right, this team's taller, so this team is gonna win. Don't get me wrong. He was not he was undersized height-wise, even for Conference USA. So with that being said, you're not really telling me anything that's new or surprising. The last thing is, he's a heavier guy or whatever the case may be. Well, how do you think that he finds ways to come up with all those rebounds despite the lack of height? He is really good at using that girth, using the body to box out opponents and get to the ball. That's what he does, and that's what matters. You can tell yourself whatever you want about, oh, I want my bigs to be this height, or oh, I want this, or oh, I want that. Well, let me just ask you this. If somebody were to tell you, hey, you can have a big that is 7'2", but extremely unskilled, not really going to give you much on offense. Defensively, he's all right, I guess, but he's 7'2", or 6'7", wildly skilled, has a really deep bag of post moves, has a nice little mid-range jumper, has a lot of things that he can do well. Which one would you take? Because we've seen, and here's the other thing. The people talk about the defensive liability part from the height disadvantage. What have we seen out of our defenses so far that we would say, oh, having a shorter guy at center is going to wreck us? Again, no offense to the young man. I hope he goes on and has success wherever he transfers. But Jalen Gibson, I mean, what did he give us with all the height that he had defensively, of course? What did he give us? I'm not here to disrespect nobody or say anybody's terrible or trash or anything, but the reality is, if you're upset about, oh, well, he may not be much on defense. We didn't have much on defense last year. We didn't have much by the way of rim protection last year. So why it would now be a problem is, I mean, it's a take. And again, Kenneth Lofton Jr. is he's a wish list guy. It'd be great if we got him. But it's still possible that he goes elsewhere. I mean, ink hasn't dried on anything, so I would hope that he comes, but I wouldn't bet the house on it. I just wouldn't do it. And if you're a bettor, go to betonline.net. It's your number one source for all of your sports stats and info. Find all the latest sports developments on betonline.net. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline is where the game starts. So the next thing I want to talk to you all about is how well Coach Doran has done player development, okay? And this staff, to me, if you're talking about in the trenches, right? We've had a couple first rounders under Dorn, both of them in the trenches. A majority of our draft picks have been in the trenches. And so, with that being said, I think it's very interesting that for as much credit as much credit as we give this team and as we give Thunder and as we give Coach Norton, I really want to talk about just how well it's been. And I won't even talk about guys that he didn't recruit per se, right? So like a Joe Tooney wouldn't really count, okay? But if you look at 2018 forward, okay, those are where our two first rounders are in Bradley Chubb and Garrett Bradbury. Neither one of those guys played that position coming in, and neither one of those guys were 5 stars. We all know the big ick is going to be a first rounder. Same deal. He actually played the position coming in, but he wasn't he wasn't the highest rated recruit in his household. Everybody was coming to see his brother, and he just happened to be there as well. But look at him now. Look at him now. And so this is a moment where we truly need to recognize, Chubb came in as a linebacker who got better and better and better at defensive end all the time after he was moved there. And then you talk about Garrett Bradbury, same thing. He had a bunch of different positions before he settled on center. He was a tight end, then he was a defensive lineman, then he was an offensive, then he was a center. But with Ick, it was a little bit more straightforward in that he was a tackle through and through, but he's been good from day one. He's been good from day one, and there's been improvement. There has been building upon what he was, but a lot of things that he has were already there. They just had to be polished, had to be refined, and all that good stuff. And so I can't praise Dorn and his staff enough. I can't praise Thunder and his staff enough because they're the reason that this is happening. And I want to talk about something interesting that was said or talked about on Twitter by the Red and White podcast when they were talking about, more kids are. It's surprising that more kids aren't coming here based on, or a fan said more kids are not coming here, which is kind of surprising given the results of development. And to that, I just say this, okay? At the end of the day, when you keep doing the work and building up the 3 and 4 stars or 2 and 3 stars, all of the you don't reap the benefits of that same day. You don't. But to say, hey, in the past 4 drafts, I've had 2 first-round linemen. Not many people in the country can say that. And so, in the same vein as you don't see a tree grow as soon as you put the seeds in the ground. It's not going to bear you fruit the same day, right? Flowers don't bloom the day you put them in the ground. That's not how it works. You don't put a seed down and expect that. Same deal here. Same deal here. But even beyond that, the way that NC State is treated in some ways by I mean, let's just be honest here. The way that NC State is treated in some ways by national media as well as the ACC, like when we talk about all of the players who were drafted having tweets about them or devoted to them from ACC Network last year, and for whatever reason, Aleem McNeil didn't get one. Like that stuff does not help. But at the end of the day, keep pounding away. Keep pounding away. There was a graphic showing that we had the second most wins in the ACC over the past 2 seasons, only trailing Clemson. And so this is why I say keep pounding away. Keep pounding away. Because at the end of the day, it's a very simple equation, okay? It doesn't matter what school has a bigger brand, has a bigger name, has bigger name recognition, all this and that. At the end of the day, when the proof is in the pudding, when the results continue to be the results, people can say, oh, well, perception is reality all day and night. When the results are the results, when you see a team winning at a high level over a sustained period of time, guess what happens? Those kids are going to want to come. Those kids are going to want to come. So with that being said, that's when you win some of those 4 and 5 star battles. That's when you got to do it. And Coach Dorn has done a good job of recruiting some of those more highly rated guys in the state of North Carolina. But I get what some people are saying in that they want to see that expand out more. But again, these young student athletes are like, at the end of the day, you got to consider these are 17, 18, 16, 17, and 18-year-olds for the most part that are making the decisions on where to go to college. So it's not always based on the most sound and logical and reasonable things. For example, a large part of what went into my college decision was that I didn't want to play in the Big Ten if I wasn't playing for Michigan, Michigan State, or Ohio State. I didn't want to play against my old teammates if I wasn't playing for one of those three teams. So, and those were, I want to say those were only three teams in the Big Ten that did not offer me. No, Penn State didn't either. Penn State and Northwestern didn't either, I believe. But that's the point here, right? So with that being said, this is a situation where if you're expecting 16, 17, 18-year-olds to have extremely great sound logic reasoning, you're wasting your time. That's a fool's errand. What we can hope for instead, what we can make happen instead, is do the things and get the things that attract those folks, right? And honestly, I think that Dave Dorn's been doing a great job of it in being just who he is. Calling out the NCAA for not giving them the 10th win when UCLA couldn't play in the bowl game due to COVID. You know, talking about how certain things are just ridiculously unright and unfair to NC State. And I say that to say this. If you allow these things to proliferate with the idea of, oh, well, we just can never talk about it, and you know, it's an excuse if we say anything about it, I'm going to tell you this. That is how you stay little brother forever. That is how you stay in the shadows forever. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. And at some point in time, not only via that, but going out and performing and winning ball games, which he has done at a higher level than anybody else in the ACC except Dabo over the last 2 years, you get what you get. You're going to get what you need to see, and you're going to start seeing that those things that, oh man, who's going to be the next up? Who's going to be the next big brand that's built out of ACC? It could be us. Why can't it be us? Why can't it be? You can talk about, oh, Mario Cristobal down in Miami and all the things that he's doing. You can talk about Mac is back. You can talk about all the things that are going on at all these different places, right? Elliott and being the new hot thing at UVA. You can talk about a lot of different things going on. At the end of the day, they still got to roll the ball out. You still got to go win ball games. And Dorn has proven he can do that. And again, if a conference tries to deny one of their best teams for some reason, it becomes evident that conference is not a very serious one and it's hurting itself. That's the reality, right? Like at the end of the day, if Coach Dorn continues to do what he's doing, the players will come. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. That's just the reality of what we're looking at. This team has built a lot of really good prospects in the trenches, a lot of really good pros in the trenches over the past few years. So the hope is that they continue to grow and that they continue to get better in player development, and that they continue to work with and mold the players that they're bringing in, regardless of what stars they're in, into guys who fit the system and guys who buy in and guys who are willing to do the work to mold themselves into great players, be it a guy who changes positions, be it a guy who just works at his position until he gets better. Either way, the proof should be in the pudding, which it is for this team. How many teams in America can say in the last 4 drafts or so that they've had 3 first-rounders? All of them in the trenches. How many? So that's the reality there. And I told y'all what I think about Devin Leary and his chances of being the first rounder next year. I told you. I am willing to bet dollars to donuts. Because, you know, I do love me a Krispy Kreme. I never participated in the Krispy Kreme challenge. That's kind of crazy to me. You know what I mean? All those donuts and then run. That's another story for another time. We don't need to talk about that. But I'm willing to bet you whatever you would want to bet, whatever currency, whatever thing you would want to have me bet, that if this NC State team goes on to win a conference championship, goes on to win an ACC championship, I'm willing to bet whatever that Devin Leary becomes a first rounder as well. And that opens up a whole new set of doors, a conference championship, as well as a a chance to, as well as a chance to have a first round quarterback, opens up a whole another bunch of doors for you. So we'll see how that goes, especially for a university like NC State, where we have been good on the cusp of really good for a year now, but we were good for the most part before that as well. Let's see where we can, if we can reach into a different stratosphere this year. But again, it all goes back to the player development here has been insane, and it's going to be great to see a time when we get those big names and when we get those players that everybody wants, and we're the ones landing them. So that's just my take there. And we're about to land this thing, but before we do, I just wanted to recap a few things here again. Kenneth Lofton Jr. would be a huge get. That would be a huge get for Keats. He'd still have 3 years of eligibility left, I believe, because he was in the COVID year. Yeah, so he would still have 3 years of eligibility left, I'm pretty sure. And he was a double-double machine where at Louisiana Tech, again, 16.5 points per game, 10.5 rebounds per game on 54% shooting. That's a guy. He's a player. He's a ball player. Doesn't matter what you want to talk about with his height, with his limitations. I don't care about what you can't do. Show me what you can. Because we saw ineptitude out of our front court this year. We saw the inability to do much out of our front court this year. So I don't care what you can't do. What can you do? Can you do things at a high level? Can you do a couple things at a high level? Because if so, you got a leg up in my book already. And the football team, again, Thunder and company, Dave Doran and company, they are making absolute monsters in that weight room, and a majority of them happen to be in the trenches. So if you're a recruit listening to this, or if you're a high school coach of a highly ranked recruit, especially a guy that's in the trenches listening to this, the player development at NC State, it's undefeated. It's undefeated. Show me another school who's getting the same caliber of players that has produced as many first rounders in the trenches in NC State. Show me. Come on now. Thank you all so very much for coming out, Wolfpack Nation. I appreciate y'all every single time. Y'all make this show what it is. Peace and love, y'all. And as always, go Pack.